is a pleasure to present to you this morning the report, actually an executive summary of the report of the OAR implementation group. The complete report is shared with you and contains a lot of information, a lot of annexes, and I encourage you to read them with a lot of attention. So what I would like to do is not read the whole report, but just an executive summary. My presentation will focus on 4 specific aspects: the IOC Executive Board decision of the 5th of December. Then we will quickly look at the monitoring of the OAR at games times. We will, third of all, look at additional elements that were taken into account for consideration of the implementation group. And we then, at the fourth and conclusion, come up with a recommendation. On the 5th of December 2017, the IOC Executive Board suspended the Russian Olympic Committee, ROC, with immediate effect and created a pathway to invite individual Russian athletes to participate in the Olympic Winter Games Pyeongchang 2018 as an Olympic athlete from Russia, OAR. The IOC Executive Board decision set guidelines by which the invitation process for athletes, support staff and officials would occur, and defined additional conditions relating to the suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee. In particular, point 9 of the EB decision stated that the IOC may partially or fully lift the suspension of the ROC from the commencement of the closing ceremony of the Olympic Winter Games Pyeongchang 2018, provided these decisions are fully respected and implemented by the ROC and by the invited athletes and officials. When we look at the monitoring of the OAR at games times, several aspects are interesting. It was agreed that an objective approach would be taken for the evaluation of OAR, using as a primary reference the measures and decisions established by the IOC Executive Board and the OAR Implementation Group, and always ensuring that the spirit of the decision was being respected. If we look at the athletes and the officials, some points have to be highlighted. As requested by the IOC as a condition of participation for the Olympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang 2018, all accredited OAR athletes and officials signed an integrity declaration form prior to validating their accreditation. There were no reported violations of the IOC's established OAR uniform guidelines or Rule 50. It was noted that OAR was one of the few delegations that attended all of the IOC and POCOG official activities and meetings, such as the chefs de mission meetings, etc. It was reported that the behavior of the group of athletes and officials that marched in the parade was exemplary. They fully complied with the IOC guidelines and were nothing but smiles as they marched. The IOC president had the opportunity to meet with athlete representatives of the OAR group and explain the rationale of the IOC Executive Board decision and field questions from the athletes. 75%, which is 3 out of the 4 athletes of the 168 athletes that competed as OAR, had never competed in the Olympic Winter Games before, and the average age was 24 years old. Looking at media operations, leading up to the Olympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang, the OAR organized a number of meetings with the Russian press, broadcasters, and media teams of the Russian national federations to brief them on the established OAR conduct guidelines. OAR press attaché took the initiative to produce additional guidelines and clarification points for the Russian media to follow during the Games. The third point I would like to highlight is the hospitality house. The ROC decided against organizing a Russian fan house, but did confirm that a third party from Russia, Sport Concept LLC, would host a hospitality house called the Sport House. As a matter of precaution, the OAR took the decision that none of their athletes would be allowed to visit the sport house without prior approval from the chef de mission. Spectators. Despite a large presence of Russian spectators, there were no incidents or violations of the POCOG spectator policy or IOC conduct guidelines during the games. We deemed the majority of the spectator behavior as positive, athlete-focused support. As per point 8 of the Executive Board decision, the ROC was to reimburse the cost incurred by the IOC on the investigations and to contribute to the establishment of the International Testing Agency, ITA, for the total sum of $15 million United States dollars. The ROC completed this payment in full on the 20th of February 2018. We now come to anti-doping rule violations. On the 20th of February 2018, it was confirmed that an anti-doping rule violation, ADRV, was committed by Alexander Krushnyanitsky, a bronze medalist in mixed doubles curling. Prior to the positive test results from meldonium, on 12 and 13 of February 2018, the athlete was tested numerous times, and for the last time on the 22nd of January 2018, and results were negative. Due to the recently established anti-doping law in Russia, 2016, and other factors related to the case that the OAR deemed suspicious, an independent criminal investigation was launched. The athlete took the decision not to contest the results or the fact that he committed an ADRV. The medals of both the athletes and his partner were returned on the 22nd of February 2018. The positive cooperation of the athlete and OAR made it possible for the medals to be reallocated during the games on the 24th of February 2018. On the 24th of February 2018, it was confirmed that an anti-doping rule violation, ADRV, was committed by Nadezhda Sergeyeva, a bobsleigh athlete. Prior to the positive test results for trimetazidine on 18th of February 2018, the athlete was tested numerous times and for the last time on 13th of February 2018, and results were negative. The athlete took the decision not to request a B sample or to contest the results of the A sample. The athlete was immediately removed from the OAR delegation, and her participation at the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018 Games was cancelled, including all results. Based on the information available, the OAR IG noted that these ADRVs were individual and isolated cases that did not show a pattern of systematic organized doping activity. There are some additional elements that we would like for you to consider, that we considered in our decision. Following the findings of the IOC Disciplinary Commission, chaired by Mr. Dennis Oswald, the IOC took the decision to ban 43 Russian athletes for life from the Olympic Games. 42 of them decided to appeal the IOC decision with the CAS. On February 1st, 2018, CAS took a decision on the appeal for 39 of these 42 athletes, and decisions of the 3 remaining athletes will be taken at a later date. Of those 39 athletes, the CAS overturned the IOC decision for 28 of these athletes and partially upheld the appeals of another 11 athletes. On the 2nd of February 2018, the Russian Olympic Committee requested that 15 of the persons, 13 athletes and 2 as coaches, be considered for an OAR invitation for the Games. Considering all the elements available and the recommendations of the panel, the OAR implementation group chose not to extend an invitation to any of these 15 individuals. On the 6th of February 2018, all 15 individuals appealed the IOC decision before CAS ad hoc, and filed a request for provisional measures before a civil court in Switzerland. On the 9th of February, the CAS ad hoc dismissed the appeal of the 15 individuals. The proceedings before the civil courts in Switzerland were subsequently withdrawn. As it stands today, the CAS has yet to take a decision on the 3 remaining athletes sanctioned by the IOC Disciplinary Commission. They're all in biathlon. 3 additional cases were appealed before CAS by athletes and officials who were not deemed eligible by the IOC to participate in the Olympic Games, Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018, communicated on the 19th of January 2018. In 2 cases, athletes also requested provisional measures before the Swiss court. We consider these cases to be closed. On the 26th of December 2017, Mr. Vitaly Mutko appealed to the CAS the IOC's decision to ban him for life from the Olympic Games. The appellant, Mr. Mutko, has been asked to file this appeal brief on or before the 15th of March 2018. The respondents, the IOC, shall file his answer on or before the 16th of April. This means that the case was opened, but that Mr. Mutko has yet to present the documents, and if he doesn't do so by the 15th of March, the case will be dismissed.
Yeah.
There were some reactions to the CAS decisions. Following the CAS decisions on the 1st and 9th of February 2018, we noted that multiple Russian representatives spoke out negatively against the decision of the CAS and further criticized the IOC. Feedback from the IOC athletes and IOC members were taken into consideration. Throughout the period of the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018, conversations and meetings were held with participating athletes and IOC members on the broader Russia situation and the OAR participation at the Games. Most comments received indicated a broad support for the group of OAR athletes and officials competing at the Olympic Winter Games in Pyeongchang, and in a number of cases, the good behavior was acknowledged. The feedback also indicated that the reinstatement of the Russian Olympic Committee was needed to keep the unity of the Olympic family and should hopefully be achieved in the near future. It was evident, however, that the decision of the Executive Board to potentially reinstate the Russian Olympic Committee at the closing ceremony was controversial. This brings me to the conclusion of the work of the implementation group. On the 5th of December 2017, the IOC Executive Board suspended the Russian Olympic Committee, ROC, with immediate effect and created a pathway to invite individual Russian athletes to participate in the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018 as an Olympic athlete from Russia, OAR. The IOC Executive Board decision set guidelines by which the invitation process for athletes, support staff, and officials would occur and defined additional conditions relating to the suspension of the ROC. The OAR Implementation Group was established with the objective to monitor and evaluate the behavior of the OAR delegation prior to and during the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang. The implementation group's mandate was to assess the behavior of the OAR delegation and make a recommendation to the Executive Board as to whether or not lift the suspension on the Russian Olympic Committee. The Russian Olympic Committee has not challenged the Executive Board decision. They have apologized publicly on numerous occasions, worked in the implementation of the OAR through developing behavior guidelines for their athletes, and paid the amount of $50 million as a contribution to the global efforts in the fight against doping. Following a detailed analysis, the implementation group acknowledges that the behavior and collaboration of the OAR delegation, especially the athletes and the OAR chef de mission, has been respectful and that they have followed the spirit of the Executive Board decision throughout the entire period of the Games. The implementation group would like to commend the athletes and officials from the OAR delegation that participated in the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018 for responding in a positive and constructive way despite the difficult circumstances created by the suspension of the ROC and the consequences of this decision. 2 members of the OAR delegation were, however, found to have committed an anti-doping rule violation, ADRV, during the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018. Based on the information available, the implementation group noted that these ADRVs were individual and isolated cases that did not show a pattern of systematic organized doping activity. Despite a good collaboration from the OAR delegation to respond to these ADRV cases in a prompt and transparent way, the implementation group was convinced that these cases caused significant concern because they represent a violation of the International Olympic Committee Executive Board decision. It is very important to note that legal challenges against the IOC's decision and public criticism from some sectors of Russian society and government were duly considered. The OAR implementation group noted that the Russian Olympic Committee was not a party to the legal challenges against the IOC. Taking into consideration the 2 paragraphs above, the OAR implementation group recommends that the suspension of the Russian Olympic Committee not be lifted at the closing ceremony on the 25th of February 2018, and conditions applying to the OAR delegation remain in place. For the purposes of historical files, the results and medals earned by the OAR at the Olympic Winter Games Pyeongchang 2018 will remain recorded as OAR. Therefore, the Russian Olympic Committee will not have participated at these games. Considering this, the implementation group recommends lifting the Russian Olympic Committee suspension once all results of the doping tests of the OAR athletes during the Olympic Winter Games of Pyeongchang 2018 have been confirmed as negative. Should an additional ADRV be found, the implementation group recommends that the Executive Board reviews the circumstances of the new cases or case in order to take the appropriate decision. It concludes my report, Mr. President, distinguished members. We are open to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Horvath, for this report. And already now, thank you for the very diligent work this implementation group performed in this difficult task. The IOC Executive Board has discussed this report extensively yesterday and today. And as I indicated before, the